And just like that, they buy it. They eat it up. You pander to them, you thank them. I mean, really, people, I thought you were a little bit smarter than that. I mean, it's just so easy to say the name of the city. You cheer.
Hey, Stephanie,
you cheer. I mean, just come on.
Welcome to the A Show.
Welcome, everybody. This is episode 104 of The A Show, and you may be wondering, why the hell, Meelz, are you doing the intro to this episode? What happened to Justin? If you're wondering that, yes, you're correct. Justin will not be on this episode. He's been called off for some international duties. He's better explaining it than I can for work. But if I'm not going to say you're going to go this entire podcast without hearing from him, because at some point in this podcast, we have along with the major guest that we have here, we have another major guest, and his name is Roman Reigns. We have an exclusive tidbit, a little bit of an interview with Roman Reigns from Justin Davis, who was at the WWE 2K launch or roster reveal or whatever the hell he sent him out to Las Vegas and paid for his dinner and food for. But in the interim, I have not only one guest, but I have two guests. The first one you're familiar with if you listen to the show, and you're familiar with, if you're follow any one of us or associated with any of us, you got to be familiar with him. We have the man who handles wrestling for Barber's Chair. Yep. Barber's Chair. I got to remember barberschair.net. Chris Novak, what's good, bro?
I'm pretty good. Not so pleased right now with the Yankees and how they're doing, but it's maybe possible that they come back against Garrett Cole and the Astros. So we'll see what happens with the rest of Game 3. But otherwise, I'm doing pretty well.
Well, listen, I'm not really a baseball fan, but I would love if the Yankees could win, because as a Knicks fan, I have no idea how winning feels anymore. It's so numb. I'm so numb to it. But our second guest, someone on the line you may know, he is making his podcast debut. He is someone who I appreciate a lot, because I feel like he's one of the only people who, I don't know if I can say has no filter. It's not no filter as a bad thing, but I think you say things that people would be more so afraid to say for I guess judgment by their peers. But nonetheless, we have making his podcast debut, first time on any podcast. We have Quan. Quan, welcome to the building, man.
Yeah, what's up, guys? It's awesome to be here. This is all cool. I don't think my filters. I don't say nothing wild, man. I don't say nothing wild.
No, you don't say nothing wild. It's just like you say things like that people would not. I feel like people wouldn't say, or like I appreciate the things that you say, because the things that you say are real. Like I feel like that's at least how I interpret your tweets and things like that. You can follow Quan at, is it Quanzilla on Twitter? Where is it?
It's Quan from CT.
Quan from CT.
I'm rebranding. You know how it goes.
Listen, we've all been we have not been in a place where we've lost our Twitter account. But fortunately enough, I mean, I'm thankful that you guys are here. I'm thankful that you guys want to do the show with me, because we have quite a big show today. Got some major news that dropped probably like 4 hours ago, 3 hours ago, 4 hours ago. And that is major news. Bruce Prichard assumes role as SmackDown executive director. Eric Bischoff is now stepped down. He is no longer with WWE. It is officially the Bruce Prichard show on Friday nights. What do you guys think? What went through your mind? What was the first thing that went through your mind when you saw that press release that says Bruce Prichard assumes the role as SmackDown executive director?
I was pretty surprised, just because I didn't expect the switch to happen so quickly. I thought that that Bischoff was going to be around for a little while, but I guess it wasn't for long for him for whatever reason. It seems like every indication was that this was a WWE move, not necessarily a Bischoff move, and that, Fightful Select had said something to the effect of, one wrestler said that they saw it coming because Bischoff didn't seem comfortable. Also, there was things. Someone had said that Prichard was already overseeing and encompassing tasks and whatnot, and had resumed his role as Vince's right-hand man, quoting directly from the Fightful Select report, by the way, there. Shout out to them for always doing great work in the wrestling journalism business. But yeah, I was very surprised.
Quan, what was your first thoughts? Eric Bischoff no longer with WWE, now Bruce Prichard in charge of SmackDown.
I was shocked at first. I'll keep it like I was shocked. I was like, "Where'd this come from?" Like the show just started. It's been 2 weeks, almost 3 weeks. Because there was the rumors going around. Like, oh, yeah, this really started up yet. It won't start up till after, the draft happened, after the Fox deal happened. You kept hearing, "Oh, he'll start doing this." Like you can see what's going on with Raw with Paul Heyman, what he's doing. You can see the little sprinkling of his influence on the show. But SmackDown just felt like SmackDown. So I'm like, does he even want it? So when I thought about it, it was more like, oh, okay, maybe something didn't work out. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
the more I thought about it, the more it made sense to me.
I like what you said, because for the longest time, and I don't know if many people agree, I mean, you can see immediately. I think we saw the first week when we saw Paul Heyman's influence on the show. And I think we all remember that it ended up, I think it was that Bobby Lashley and Braun Strowman Open where it was just like violence for violence. And it was just like insane. Like, damn, these guys, how are they going to make it to that last man standing match? This was kind of an overkill, but it was like violence. Like Corey Graves says like, holy shit. And like all types of extra thing. You can tell when it's Paul. I mean, even now we got the Lana and Bobby Lashley program, and it's just like, it's got the fingerprints of Paul Heyman all over it. But when you look at SmackDown, we're like, yo, when I don't see people showing up in limousines at 9:58 p.m. or like, or luchadors taking over SmackDown or anything. Like in terms of the Eric Bischoff imprint, I felt like we didn't see it, even though I guess it was reported that he started his role probably really 2 months ago. It was after the initial report. He had to move up to Connecticut and everything, but like, it's crazy because we didn't really see the fingerprints. And I think one of the most notable things that we heard about during his entire, I guess his 3-month run at the top was how that Roman Reigns, Eric Rowan, Daniel Bryan, whatever that handled to. Do you feel like that was an indicator that something wasn't necessarily going right?
Maybe that was it. I mean, we don't know. It's one of those situations where, of course, Eric Bischoff, executive producer, Paul Heyman, executive producer. But in the end, it goes up. It's all up to Vince in the end. You know what I'm saying? So, like, maybe there was a misunderstanding. I mean, honestly, you know how Eric Bischoff. Well, we don't personally know them, but you know how Eric Bischoff is. You know how Vince is. It could have been a clash. Maybe they figured, you know what? This ain't working out between the both of us. I know they said he got fired or whatever, but it could have been a mutual agreement. Like, you know what? Let's just end it here before it goes any further into it.
Yeah, I can definitely see that too, because it's like you had mentioned. SmackDown didn't really feel any different. It felt like it was still just the same show. So was it was Bischoff's influence not as heavy as predicted? Was it that some ideas were clashing and not aligning with certain things, because you couldn't really see his imprint on anything except for really that that Brian Reigns Rowan angle where they had the whodunit stuff and then they had the one reveal of the lookalike of Rowan and whatnot. So I mean that could have been, I don't know if necessarily the phrase the nail in the coffin would work here, but that could have been what started the downslide. Like if that didn't work out, everything else, had just like a trickle-down effect there.
And I think the magnifying glass is so heavy because this is Fox. This is on, network television. This is the brand new A show. I mean, you talk about the A show. I mean, we even treat it as the A show. We're going from Fridays to Mondays now in terms of what the hell we do on this show. But it's really treated as the A show, and I don't think they can have any chance of slip-ups. Like, they don't want the rating to continue to slip. They want that television that gets people engaged. They want that. I mean, I don't know what else is on Fox, to be quite honest with you, except The Simpsons and Family Guy. But I'm assuming they want that type of show that like grabs people and engages them. And I don't know if we saw that from SmackDown the last couple months. I mean, the Roman Reigns thing was definitely interesting, but at some point it went sideways when they did do the dual, Eric Rowan thing. And while I thought it was hilarious, I mean, I still think it was hilarious to this day. It didn't really hit. It reached the point of, this is actually, as opposed to it being like a threatening thing, and then it kind of got really like, you could make fun of this entire angle, and you kind of, jump back and reminded yourself like, oh damn, I am watching professional wrestling. But this entire thing, man, like for Eric Bischoff to be gone so soon, we can only speculate in terms of what happened. I mean, Eric Bischoff dropped a statement a little bit earlier today, and he was like, listen, this entire thing, they're in great hands with Bruce Prichard and everything like that. He's going to do a great job. And it's like, well, yeah, duh. Like, he's going to do a great job. But like, I'm still wondering, like, what actually happened? Because for this to go so south pretty soon, to me, it's kind of like an indicator of that, like, because I don't think Eric Bischoff, at this point in his life, now having to move to Connecticut, he's probably like 60 something years old, wants to really waste his time with something that he doesn't really have full reins out of. Do you feel like, I don't know, I'm trying to figure out, like, does it
makes you question, like, yo, I mean, we hear reports here and there about, like, yo, what's really going on backstage over there? Like, is it this chaotic, or is it that much differences between, the people up top, what's going on with Fox, what's Fox influence and all this? There's like so many variables that we don't know, we may never know. It'd be just like, how, I mean, the man moved, where's he from? Wyoming?
Yeah.
He went from Wyoming all the way, he moved his whole family to Wyoming to Connecticut. That's not a short flight. You know what I mean? That's a big move. Did you get fired, 3-4 months in? So, I mean, it makes you question some stuff like what's really going on backstage over there.
Quan, do you think the problem was, as a Connecticut resident yourself, is it amazing living in it? Do you think it could have been homesickness or like whatever? Like, it's Connecticut. Is the air really different over there?
So I'm assuming he'd be on the west coast part of not west coast, but west side of Connecticut.
No, I didn't know that it was the west side of Connecticut. Holy shit!
Well, the more, what's the word I'm looking for? More affluent side over there. They got a little more money over on that side. So I don't know. He might be breathing in that New York air more closer to that. I don't know where he moved to, but it ain't the Connecticut I'm from. I can tell you that much.
Oh my God. But yeah, I mean, this is possibly the biggest news. I really honestly don't know how much of an effect this will have on SmackDown. Considering, to me, when you look at a Paul Heyman Monday Night Raw, you can definitely tell that it's a Paul Heyman Monday Night Raw. I think with SmackDown, I mean, there's certain indicators. I think with Bruce Prichard, you get a lot of good, pre-tapes, a lot of different various, characters that end up on the show. I'd see, I think one indicator now that we can look back in hindsight is Bray Wyatt being drafted over to SmackDown.
Yep.
Because that seems to have just been a Bruce Prichard project for the longest time, and him bringing him over to SmackDown. We've heard so many times, in reports that like, okay, Paul Heyman wants this guy on Raw. He loves Buddy Murphy. He is like, he could think, in Cedric Alexander and all these people, that he wants Alistair and all this other things. And it's like, all right, well, what does Eric Bischoff know no one on SmackDown? Is he just fine with Roman Reigns and a couple other people? But now seeing that Bray Wyatt is ending up on SmackDown, you kind of get to see the writing on the wall a little bit. Like, you can see that, listen, maybe they were either preparing for this. Maybe Bruce Prichard was just, now he was going to be more so on SmackDown than usual. And he just like, all right, this is just for better comfortability. It's interesting how we see. It's interesting if this will end up a podcast or something. I have no idea. But yeah, I mean, this is the biggest news of the week by far. We got a couple other things in No Holds Barred this week. And one of the things in No Holds Barred is, and I'm not sure how you feel about this guy. I personally don't feel either way about him. It just is what it is. Mike Kanellis, formerly Mike Bennett of ROH, has asked for his release from the WWE. He has let people know that he's asked for his release. He has sent out the official iOS press statement, which is opening up your news app and typing a whole lot and then posting it on Twitter and or Instagram. He he has sent the official release, Mike Kanellis. What do you think of him asking for his release? Are you moved? Do you think it'll happen? I don't know.
I don't care at all about Mike Kanellis, Mike Bennett. Never did. Didn't care when he was in New Japan. Didn't care when he was in Ring of Honor. He might have been on Impact and didn't care then either. It don't matter. Nothing. I don't feel anything for Mike Kanellis. You can go.
Yeah, I mean, this whole thing's been kind of weird because he apparently had asked for his release back in January or whenever it was when Pro Wrestling Sheet reported that, and then he re-signed with the company 4 months ago, and then he asked for his release today or yesterday because I read the statement. He had said that a working one day isn't going to cut it for me, which I guess implies that the 205 Live is pretty much dead and buried.
Yeah,
but it's just like if you were frustrated, why did you re-up?
Yeah.
I mean, like you could have probably gone back to ROH. You probably could have gone back to Impact or whatever. They would have taken you. If you felt that way, I'm not going to have too much sympathy for you if you would re-sign 4 months ago. Like, if you don't want to be in a place you don't want to work in, fine, but like, don't re-up then. And it's not like they're going to. I don't think they're going to release him anyway. Which you can say what you will of that policy and whatnot, but it's just like, why bother re-up?
Yeah, to me, it sounds very weird. Not that it sounds weird. I can get like, okay, I want to leave, and they're like putting you over barrels. Like, hey, we'll give you more money, we'll give you more things. And I think there was a time on 205 Live and on Raw, he was getting a little bit more. Mm-hmm. I don't want to say unfortunately, but with Maria, especially being one half of the act, and quite honestly, probably the more dynamic of the duo, getting pregnant and then having to be off television for quite some time. This is kind of like Maria gave birth a couple years ago, and she had her child, and he was off TV for a significant amount of time. That at that point, we also know that he was trying to conquer his demons. He was doing his best to get in shape. He was doing a whole bunch of other things. So I do think that there is actual effort put in from him to be where he's at, so he can, give his all to the company that he wants to be in. But I also think I'm agreeing with Chris. It's like, yo, then why did you re-up? I mean, yeah, it looks kind of, looks incredibly stupid in hindsight, but it's like, if you felt this way before, I would say, honestly, go with your gut and kind of follow with it, because the career of Mike Kanellis in the WWE, I think, was just ruptured from the beginning.
Yeah.
And the first time we saw him to generally crickets, from that gimmick to the first time on SmackDown he debuted, to the subsequent kind of just him not even appearing, maybe even the second or third week after that, it's like his entire thing, has he even had I don't even know how many matches he's actually had this year. I mean, I know, Chris, you got the stats and things like that, but it's like, is he even in he's not even in your top 25 or anything for.
Yeah, he's had, I think, not counting the Saudi show, I have him right now at, let me see here, because I just looked it up yesterday. He is at 21 televised matches. So that's, again, not including anything on Main Event, not including anything on the first Saudi show. So right. He's a part of, there's a decent amount of people who are at 20 plus matches. So he's up there. He's worked a decent amount on 205 Live and then a couple Raw matches and whatnot. But right. Yeah, he's not in the upper percentiles or anything like that. So, but
it's just kind of crazy. I think because to me, this is kind of like a situation where I think what would have worked best for him, and granted, I don't know how many people would have wanted him in NXT, but there's only a certain people who I feel like can bypass NXT and go to the main roster and have an immediate effect. And the only person who's kind of really done it thus far is AJ Styles. Everyone from Finn Balor to Shinsuke Nakamura, even Samoa Joe, Kevin Owens, all of them who've had, quite honestly, way more lucrative independent careers than Mike Bennett, have gone to NXT and, made sure to kind of hone and understand their character and what kind of works, what kind of doesn't work. But him kind of, to me, jumpstarting and debuting on the main roster without any of the, appeal or anything, kind of set him back a lot, because he's never really like moved any particular needle or anything like that. And for him to ask for his release, I'd say honestly, I wouldn't. If I were WWE, I probably would have given it to him. But I don't know. I don't know what the contract situation is like. If it's like, oh, if you if we grant your release within the first year of your contract, you get this much like money back or whatever, etc. I don't know the entire, situation of his ideals, but I really don't feel like you're losing anything, especially if you're like in fear that he may jump to AEW. I'm like, quite honestly, there's plenty of, muscular white guys over in AEW that probably he probably fit right in the mold of what all they actually going over there. Like, it's not really, I don't see him much of a really moving the needle anywhere he goes.
Yeah, I mean, I would just let him go. Like, he's not gonna make any company really any serious money or anything like that. At least that's what I think. But
that's what I'm saying. Like, nobody's checking for Mike Bennett. Keep this back. Nobody's checking for Mike Bennett.
No.
What's he gonna? If he goes to Ring of Honor, he's gonna go to Ring of Honor in front of 200 people, whatever they're selling nowadays, man. And like, no one's going to see. I never in my life heard somebody say, "Yo, you see that Mike Bennett match on 205?" Not once. No one ever tweeted me that. No one asked me that. But, man, like, let's keep it a stack, man. If he wants to go, if I'm WWE, just let him go, man. He ain't gonna. Not like he's gonna take away viewers. Like, no one's upset that Mike Bennett's leaving. Like, I'm never watching Raw again because I can't see Mike Bennett get cucked on Raw every week. Like, no one cares. Like, it's fine. Let him go.
I mean, it's quite interesting. Maria's like, I did not ask for my release. I don't know what this guy is talking about. I mean, I'm good with that. I mean, quite honestly, you got the better part of the two. If you keep Maria and you pair her up with anybody at this point, I think Maria, as much as on, I think I don't want to say toned down on Twitter because I don't think she said anything too extreme. I think she just voiced her opinions very vociferously, and then really just someone who is not afraid to say, especially considering like she's been in the business like almost 15 years now. Like, it's actually crazy. She's not someone who's really shies down from voicing their opinion and things like that. I think that's why she wasn't initially when they were doing like that Divas pickup. I say Divas because that's how old it was. That Divas pickup at the beginning of the decade, they didn't really grab her because of how vocal she was about how she was released and the people involved in it, etc. like that. But quite honestly, like in terms of just a mouthpiece and someone who has managed to evolve as a character and evolve and actually, garner some heat and garner the, reaction from people. I honestly think she's probably the better one. Keep Maria, dump Mike. That's what I'm saying. All right, so we got some New Japan news. This is weird for me because Justin is not here, so I have to say all this stuff and do all these things and et cetera, et cetera. Wait, Quan, you're a fan of New Japan.
Yeah, I'm a very casual fan. I haven't watched New Japan since the G1 final. I've been, keeping track. I see the highlights and stuff, but I haven't really watched anything since G1.
Well, I mean, honestly, nothing has really changed. The main event of Wrestle Kingdom 14. I mean, there's a big thing that kind of changed, but the main event of Wrestle Kingdom 14, Kazuchika Okada, who defended against Sonata at King of Pro Wrestling, will be going up against, and this means that it's confirmed. All title defenses are in the bag. All other type of matches. Kota Ibushi, who retained his title match against Evil over the last weekend. This is confirmed. It is now official. It is official what we're going to see on January 4th. It is Okada versus Kota Ibushi for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. I can't believe I said it all so smoothly myself. I want to give myself a pat on the back for that. It took me only 104 episodes. Are you guys anticipating this match at all?
Yeah, I think it's gonna be an incredible match. Okada, you can't go wrong with Okada. He's gonna give you minimum 4-star 30-minute classic. Kota Ibushi is an absolute psychopath and he's gonna drop himself on his neck 30 times in the match. So I mean, I can't wait. I might stay up for it. I mean, was it 4 a.m. in the morning, wherever East Coast, but I might stay up for that one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a less than casual New Japan Pro Wrestling fan, but I obviously know of Kota Ibushi from his work at the Cruiserweight Classic, and also just by being a less than casual fan, his name obviously carries a lot of weight. Same thing with Okada's. It's a marquee match. It's probably be pretty great. I know they're doing 2 nights of Wrestle Kingdom, so
Oh, really? I didn't know that. But,
yeah, they are apparently doing 2 nights.
You got a bigger scoop than me, my friend.
Yeah. So I guess would be interested in seeing, is either going to pull double duty, because I know there's also rumor that Tanahashi is facing Jericho, and then also that Jushin Thunder Liger's last match is going to take place there. So they're definitely stacking the deck, it seems. So it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, I would say Okada versus Ibushi has my attention.
Do you think that the show will garner the same attention as the previous Wrestle Kingdoms? Because I think, I think just in general, New Japan, its status in the wrestling world, and I don't think that it's necessarily like they have bad wrestling or anything like that, but its status in terms of the trajectory over the last number of years, everything from, I think, Wrestle Kingdom, maybe was it 9 or 11? Everything from that AJ Styles to Shinsuke Nakamura match, that's been building over the last couple of years, and we've seen the prominence of New Japan, in the United States over the last 5 years or so. Do you feel like this is kind of will continue that sort of rise? I feel like each year they've gone. I mean, the Jericho thing did major numbers for them, and it ended up being one of the most lucrative Wrestle Kingdoms of all time. Do you feel like we're here, especially now that they're, the Bucks are gone, Kenny Omega's gone, a lot of people, now, I think they'll still have Jon Moxley. So that's at least, I hope so. I don't know. I don't know after, what we got over the last couple weeks, but they'll still have that. Do you feel like the notoriety of this, New Japan, it will continue to sort of rise with all these different things? I'm not fully sure it will.
I think the loss of all the elite guys kind of hurt a little bit of the interest on the western part of the earth. You could look at some of the crowds they had, when they came to America recently over the summer or the past few months. They were fine crowds, but you would have anticipated this a year ago. You would have thought those crowds would have been sellouts. But I don't think it's dropped too much, but I do think the loss of the elite will hurt. But I don't know how popular it is in Japan itself. You know what I mean? So that's I'm imagining that's where all their money's coming from. So I'm sure they're more concerned about what's going on in the homeland than America. America's a little side project.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree there. I also it definitely does feel like because I know almost 2 years ago now, the end of Wrestle Kingdom 12 when they didn't put the title on Naito and they kept it on Okada, that definitely interest seemed to wane after that a little bit, because that also wound up coinciding with the Bucks and Omega eventually departing the following year. But yeah, I am intrigued to see, how much interest bubbles up from this, because, like I said, even for someone like me who doesn't watch that often, I would definitely be interested in this match because they're 2 big names, probably 2 of the biggest names that they have right now in that promotion. So
yeah,
I will, like Quan had said, they're probably significantly more interested in seeing how things go with the homeland. But
yeah, it's kind of crazy just considering the fact that I think they were, before AEW came around, I think they were generally like, okay, maybe we can actually kind of pierce the US market. And I don't know if they were going to make a major dent, because WWE is WWE through and through. Like, WWE is the major monopoly. It is a conglomerate. It is, by all means, everything that kind of America stands for with professional wrestling. But I think they were genuinely like, okay, we can make a dent. We can, the subscriptions worldwide is going to raise, all these other things like that. But now that you've got, for instance, I'm pretty sure they'll just have to end up doing an agreement with either Impact or ROH, but they can't really do it with AEW. AEW contracted stars, and, who also, I think it would be a good deal if they did, just because AEW, you're getting some people who are, on television, who got some eyes on them that can bring eyes to New Japan. But the fact that they can't work in the United States, I don't think they'll ever really be able to sort of pierce that United States market. And it's kind of sad, but, at the same time, I'm sure they're like, all right, we're just going to stick with what we got. Like, it's Japan all the way through, like, hip, hooray. But yeah, man, I mean, speaking of New Japan, we got some major news over the last weekend that Jon Moxley, former New Japan United States champion, without a single title defense, has now been stripped of said belt because he was unable to make it to the King of Pro Wrestling event. As you know, there's been, I believe it was a typhoon. That affected the entire event and certain people making the event. And because Jon Moxley could not make the event, and because I guess they're supposed to defend at least once every 6 months, which, is very lenient, to be honest with you, but the way they handle business, I understand. They had to strip him of the United States Championship, and the match was changed to the less intriguing Juice Robinson versus Lance Archer. And I mean, I don't really think it takes a genius to say that Juice Robinson lost, but like, this is interesting. Do you feel like, I don't know, do you feel like has there been something like plaguing Jon Moxley's like New Japan run? Do you feel like it's meant to be in the stars or meant to be in the cards or anything like that?
That too. When he started the G1, you could see it in him. He felt really energized. You felt a little pep to him, to his step. You could tell he really wanted to be there. He had something to prove after he left WWE, to really make a name for himself as John. Like, we know him as Dean Ambrose. Like, it took me forever to stop calling him Dean.
Yeah, I mean,
Jon Moxley.
I'm not calling him that because I have a name on a paper and I'm just reading off of it. But yeah.
I was calling him Dean. I just recently started calling him John because I've been, watching AEW. But I'm like, yeah, it just kind of it seems like a string of bad luck for the guy, man. He got the MRSA infection, which that's life threatening, and that just really kind of derailed everything. It seems like he had bad luck with the U.S. belt. He never defended it in WWE. He didn't get to defend it in New Japan. Something's going on, man.
That's funny as shit.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, it's sad, but it's also just sort of interesting. I think he really wanted that sort of New Japan, and by all means, he'll probably still compete. I mean, this doesn't stop him from competing in New Japan. We'll likely see him at Wrestle Kingdom, to be honest with you. But it's just crazy because I know how much he's actually wanted this, because I feel like for the bulk of his career, especially in WWE, he's felt like he's lost credibility with the fans. And he's felt like he's lost credibility on the promo side and in the ring side, everything. He's as hardcore as possible. We joke about the Jon Moxley rules on AEW because every time he comes out, there's just like either steel chairs or whatever the hell it is or anything like that. But I feel like he's always had a point to prove, and New Japan is like, okay, they snug here, they hit stiff here. Like, if you can make it there, you cemented your pro wrestling career as a pro wrestler in Japan. But it just hasn't really been working out, to be honest with you. Like, I mean, the New Japan United States, he's no longer the champion. I'm sure he'll get a rematch somewhere down the line, but yeah, it sucks for the Jon Mox, man. Have you guys, I mean, I know we normally talk about this on the War Report, which you can tune into every Friday on, the A Show RNC network, but how have you guys been digging the AEW Wednesday shows? Has it been interesting? I'll start with you, Chris. How have you been digging it thus far?
I haven't watched episode 2 yet, and I probably won't end up getting around to it.
Yeah, same.
The first show was fine for a debut show. I mean, I think the presentation of it was nice. Obviously, they have smooth camera angles. Their stage is cool. I think they could do better in the pyro department, but whatever. But I think it's interesting for me just because I'm genuinely not really interested in like 90% of their main event scenes. So I have to really rely on their tag teams and their women's stuff, but their women's stuff has been lacking because they've only had one women's match per show so far, and the tag team stuff is kicking up. I haven't gotten a chance to watch Private Party versus the Bucks, which apparently got really rave reviews from pretty much everyone.
Yeah, I really like that match. That's the only match I really saw.
Yeah. So I mean, for me going forward, it's just gonna be like, okay, can you get me interested in your main event stuff? Because that's just the big hang up for me. Because Jericho doesn't do it for me right now. I don't care about Jack Swagger or Jake Hager or whatever.
What? You're not an Inner Circle, Mark?
As of right now, I'm not. I can't say that I am.
Oh my God.
I mean, Ortiz and Santana are cool as the artists formerly known as LAX, which goes in again to the tag team stuff. But and Omega's whatever on me, and I'm not really too interested in Cody. All credit to him though for marketing himself well. Page, not really. Pac, I mean, I've already seen probably the best that I could see of Pac. So, but yeah, I mean, the show, the first show was pretty good just from a oh wow, this looks really cool standpoint, and I'm intrigued to see what the Philly show looks like on Wednesday night. So
yeah. I mean, Quan, what do you think? What do you think of AEW this far? Dynamite. Has it been really Dynamite? Has it been?
It's been fine. I'm not like this is the most like quintessential greatest wrestling show of all time that I'm starting to see online a little bit. But for the fan base they're trying to target towards, I think they're doing a great job. It's everything, the we want the Attitude Era kind of crowd really, I think they'll really enjoy it. The WWE hate watchers. This is definitely their speed. I agree with Chris. I'm not the biggest fan of the top of the card guys. The elite guys. I feel like they've lost their step a little bit. I have no interest in Chris Jericho at all. However, I do agree the tag team division. I think they have a great, promising tag team division. I think their mid card is really strong too. I do like Darby Allin. I don't like that whatever that coffin drop thing. I think that's a very silly wrestling move, but I do like Darby Allin a lot. I love Luchasaurus. I think he's going to get over real fast. I don't know what they're doing with Orton Cassidy, but he's super over. I think the mid card is very promising. If they build that mid card right and really get them, mix it up with the vets, which I feel like they're doing by putting Sammy Guevara with Chris Jericho or putting Hangman with Dustin, things like that. I think the mid card, if they build the future right, they can really make a difference.
Yeah, I agree. I know Justin hates when we talk about AEW in any sort of positive light on here. So, just for that, we'll end that now. We'll end all that AEW talk now because I know this is what you guys have been waiting for. You've been waiting for the big dog. We have our official, exclusive AEW A show exclusive interview with Roman Reigns. I'm going to throw it over to Justin right now. Stay tuned. This is the A show.
All right, everybody. It's Justin back on the A Show. I'm here with cover star Roman Reigns. What's going on, Roman?
Good. Doing good, man. Thank you.
This is actually a weird day for me because a couple of months ago I got a dog and I named him Roman after you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
What kind of dog?
It's a French bulldog. He's really small.
Okay.
He's not like
nothing wrong with it. I got a small dog too.
He's not like the big dog, but he's like a dog.
That spot's taken, so he had to be the little dog.
So, I mean, how does it feel to kind of be on the cover of 2K for the first time and be sharing it with somebody like Becky Lynch?
It feels great. I mean, obviously, if you're on the cover, it means you did something right. So for me, to be able to have another really good year, especially after, having to take my leave and kind of get my health back in order, to be able to come back, to be a part of 2K along with Becky, the man, you know what I mean? I think her year speaks for itself.
Absolutely.
She's the main event of WrestleMania. I've been there. I know the magnitude of that, the responsibility of it. She stepped up, and just to be able to share this, it just feels like a really, just a cool and a very special moment to be able to share with arguably our best performers.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man, I feel at home.
Yeah, and I mean, more than that, you mentioned that you were away for a while and you came back, and now actually in the game you're teaming out with a cancer advocacy group to kind of promote the game as well. How did that come about?
Yeah, we partnered up with LLS, the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. It just made sense. They've done so much hard work, and they've raised, I believe, over $1.3 billion for research and financial support for families and stuff. So they've really, for years now, gone above and beyond and helped so many people, supported so many people, people like me, just like me. So one of the things that we just wanted to be able to partner up and help them with is just getting them to where people see them more, you know what I mean, to where LLS is on your mind and you like, oh, I saw that. And so to be able to help, team up with WWE, that's something that we do every single week. We are a promotional machine. So to be able to team up with them and just, bring a bunch of positivity, towards their campaign and get as many eyes and awareness on it, I'm just really proud to be a part of it.
Yeah, it's super dope. And I think the one thing that was really eye-opening about your diagnosis is that in WWE, like, as fans, we've never seen it up close and personal like that before. How did it feel for you to be able to kind of open our eyes to something like that?
It was scary. Yeah, it was extremely scary. But that, once I started going and once the crowd just heard me out, and then once I finished that speech and just felt the outpour of love on the internet, from social media, it felt empowering, to be honest, to just be able to share my story, to know that people had my back, supported me, and also took a little bit of inspiration, got some hope off of me. It really made me feel so much more comfortable in my skin. And I just can't thank the world and my supporters and, people that just lifted me up, prayed for me, sent me positive vibes. I can't thank them enough.
Awesome. The draft is tonight. And according to the rules, you're draft eligible. You've been on both shows at this point. Is there any preference that you want to, any show you want to be on, any performers that you want to face on either show right now?
No, I mean, eventually I'm going to want one of these titles. You know what I mean? Eventually we're going to need a title.
It's been a minute. It's been a minute.
I had any jewelry around my waist in a while, on my shoulder for a minute. But no, I mean, I had a great run with Raw for years. I've been on SmackDown here for about
6 months.
Yeah, for about 6 months. Had the whole wild card rule for a little bit. Wild card reigns up in here.
R.I.P. wild card rule.
They make rules for me. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, just to have the opportunity to be in the ring, you know what I mean, to be healthy. After this year, put me anywhere, you know what I mean? Just let me be on the team. Let me continue to do my thing. Eventually, I'd like to work my way back into a title scenario, but until that time, I just want to go out there and have my best performances.
Awesome. Thank you. Can I get one?
Wow. What an interview. I don't know what to say about that, except that... No, I mean, it was a fantastic. If you love, I mean, I think Justin asked the great questions. He asked the questions about what we can see from the draft, which we're going to talk about pretty soon. We talk about if he, apparently he didn't prefer any show, which is great because he's ending back on the same show. And I think this should be a great segue into draft talk on this episode, because this week between SmackDown and Raw was the big draft that's been heralded, the one that we've been excited about for weeks. For shaking up the roster that already 6 months into whatever shakeup they did seemed already pretty dry. And then the wild card only further saturated that. But we've got the draft. Let's talk about the most controversial part of the draft thus far, and I'm going to ask Quan about it first. Let's talk about the first controversial part of the draft. How do you feel in terms of the presentation of this? Do you feel like they were trying to go for this sort of real sports thing? They're trying to go for just to be sort of, I know, like an authentic kind of take. What did you think about the presentation of the draft?
So, ideally, I did like the concept of them doing USA versus Fox. I thought that was a good idea. Adds a little bit more realism. Obviously, in real life, the execs would have a say in, hey, we want so and so on our show. Mm-hmm. So I did like that. I appreciated them even having, outside celebrities from respective networks putting their 2 cents in. I think the USA side did a little bit better than the Fox side. A lot of those NFL guys, they didn't know what they're talking about.
A pile driver, man.
A pile driver on the field. Bugging. Hey, Bradshaw's bugging. But, yeah, I mean, I didn't hate the presentation. I did see some comments online. I know some people would rather had seen, instead of those kind of canned office war room little videos, prefer, wrestler reactions. And I do agree with the wrestler. I wish we would have seen, some kind of wrestler reaction, even if it was online or anything. We barely even got any of those.
Yeah, I mean, Chris, what do you think about the sort of presentation? It's been the most critiqued part about this entire ordeal, is that it while it was presented in a certain way, the way the entire thing shook down, it just didn't really.
Yeah, I do agree. You know, I see what they were looking for. I thought the War Room stuff was campy, which was what it was supposed to be. But if you're gonna be campy, why not go all in? Like you could have had. I saw no reason not to involve the wrestlers. I don't know why they, because I know that they dropped some like segments or interviews or whatever on their YouTube channel and on Twitter and whatnot after the show. Why didn't you just have those during the show?
Yeah.
Like, for instance, one thing that you could have done, since they made it a point to pick them separately, you had Alexa and Nikki be picked separately. Why didn't you harp on that, since Nikki eventually got picked anyway later to remain on Raw? You could have at least drawn that out with like a segment or two of them being confused and then sad, and then Nikki would have gotten picked and she could have frenetic and happy again and done something with that.
Maybe Alexa Bliss is just like, that's fine. I never really needed you or anything like that. She plays into a heel character a little bit, and then when Nikki Cross has come back, I was like, oh, she switches up, kind of proves that she's the fake bee that she is.
Exactly. Yeah. So I like I said, I think that they honestly they could have done more. I wouldn't say that they did a bad job, because I think they did a decent job or whatever, but there was definitely some stuff left on the table.
Yeah, I'm not. To be honest with you, I think the entire, once you began to see what the actual draft actually was, and you going through the picks and stuff like that, I felt more so like this draft was so patronizing because it's legitimately, they're saying anybody can go to any brand at any time, but now you're just picking the champions that go back to the respective brands, so you kind of like lose, like, first of all, like, I don't know, like 4 to 6 draft picks where you're just like, oh, who's going to go to which brand? And it's like, oh, the Raw Tag Team Champions are going to the Raw brand.
Yeah, like you could have just let the champions out, like, and not made them eligible to be picked. Like, they could have just been locked in. You would have, maybe drawn out a little bit of suspense and whatnot, because I get what they were doing with, having Becky be the first overall pick to cement her as, the top star in the entire company. But same time, it's like, well, there's no drama and intrigue for where the Raw Women's Champion is going to go, because you're not going to have her wear a red belt on SmackDown. So it's like, oh, okay.
It's so weird to me, and it was so like, I felt, and it's not that I hated it, but it's just that I was not interested at all. Once I saw how it was shaking down, I was not interested at all, because relatively, I mean, if you really want to be real, everyone kind of shows up on their respective brand again anyway, aside from a few people. I mean, we've got Brock Lesnar on SmackDown, which is something new. But you got Seth Rollins back on Raw. You have the New Day back on SmackDown. You have Becky Lynch on Raw, where she's been pretty much all the entire time. Daniel Bryan on SmackDown, like Bayley on SmackDown. All these different people who didn't really change shows. So as opposed to and then just the fact that they didn't change shows and there was no interaction with the superstars themselves, or there was no sort of two rivaling parties outside of these these boardrooms of just these random people throwing their hands up and high-fiving. Go ahead.
They kind of just went really bare minimum with it. I mean, to be entirely fair, I don't think, and I guess I'll speak for myself here, I wasn't looking for like massive shakeups. I was just looking for, a sense of just order and structure. So I didn't necessarily mind that there weren't too many moving parts or whatever. But at the same time, if you're going to do this draft, at least try to involve the wrestlers and the segments and whatnot, not just have these, cutaways to the war rooms either celebrating or being mad or what have you.
Do you feel like that first draft, remember that 2002 draft, was still the best draft?
Yeah. Yes.
Like, by far, just from the actual parties that were involved. I mean, you got a big personality like Vince McMahon. You got a big personality like Ric Flair. They're both vying because they both have these massive egos trying to pick so they can have, respectively, the better show. And quite honestly, like that, I felt like that was sort of, if we're going all the way into sports entertainment, lean into the entertainment. I mean, don't get me wrong. They wanted that authentic sports value. They're on Fox. They're on, all these type of things, Fox Sports, all these other things. They want to make sure that there's an authentic. They don't want to seem hokey. And in general as they're doing this, and I understand this, but at the same time, you miss so many elements that made the show actually watchable. Because by the third hour, I was just like, you know what, I don't really even care who goes to what show now, and now they have this free agents thing. And to be quite honest with you, if I'm a superstar, I'm like, please don't pick me, because I want to choose which show I go on. I don't really want to be picked for any particular show. I want to be the one to sort of, and I think they could have played it up more with, you know, especially if they had like two polarizing characters. They didn't have that this time. They didn't want to do, I guess, Heyman and Bischoff. It would have been muddying the waters a little bit too much, but they could have had, I think, a representative from both sides.
Yep.
To sort of build that entire thing. And then you have like, okay, maybe, you know, someone goes up to Randy Orton backstage and is like, listen, you know, or do all those, you know, what is it, the tampering or whatever the fact. I don't know. It's professional wrestling. You really want to, at this point, make the satire of sports. Like, make it look as silly as it actually is when it comes to the actual real drafts and things like that. Like, to me, it was what it was. Anybody on a particular show that you were excited to see either move to a show or remain on their show? Let me start with you, Quan.
You know what was more interesting to me during this whole draft, going off of that, was not so much who went where, but when they got picked. Some of them, some people caught me off guard. I was like, oh, really? For example, I thought Humberto Carrillo, I think he went third round. And I was like, really? This guy got signed a year ago, and he's already on Raw third round. So, and, you know, or Drew in the first round, fourth pick. I'm like, this dude. So I'm more interested in see if there was the order of the picks meant something, or was it just random, or do they have big plans for these guys? Is it finally time for the Drew push? He's no longer a lackey. He's gonna be his own thing, or you know, something like that.
Probably not. I don't know. To be honest with you, I'm just saying. You know, I don't know. I don't know. All these. What about you, Chris? Is there anybody that sort of popped off the page in terms of where they're picking, where they're going?
Honestly, there's two people. Well, one group and one person that I'm interested in seeing project go forward. Street Profits on Raw, especially considering how things went for them on Monday. They seem to be in line for big things, and I'm interested in seeing how Drew Gulak does on SmackDown. He wasn't picked. He was, you know, the additional. He was an additional pick after the show or whatever. But you know, he's going to SmackDown. There's a decent amount of, you know, people that he can work with there. He obviously has a very big personality. Could be in line for something, you know, maybe in the mid-card, out of the mid-card one day. Obviously, he's a great wrestler, so I'm intrigued to see what he does.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. A lot of people also making noise. Late 6th round pick on Raw, Liv Morgan.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know. WWE is so weird. It's like we can make enough noise for Liv Morgan, but if they don't actually put her on the actual show, then it's like, what's it really all for?
Yeah.
But I do think, I honestly do think Liv Morgan, as much as like, okay, she may not have it all in the ring yet, I do think she's somewhat of a worthwhile commodity. And I'll say that I think beyond what we've seen from the Riot Squad, that I think was kind of like reeled in a little bit, was that she definitely has a personality.
Yes.
And a kind of like something you gravitate towards Liv Morgan for more reasons than one, but you gravitate more towards her because you're like, oh, look at that, she has an interesting look. And I think that's something that they can sort of play off a little bit. So I'm not, you know, the Liv Morgan train, I see what it is. I'm completely fine with it. The Miz is back on SmackDown. I'm happy. But they're announcing, I mean, by the time, you know, you hear this, you already know the big news, but on the WWE show, I forgot what it's called. WWE, what's it called?
Backstage.
On WWE Backstage, you're announcing this big trade, this big, you know, we're shifting rosters and big trades and things like that. And it's just like, oh, just great. Do you feel like any side, I mean, clearly I feel like SmackDown lacks. I think SmackDown, them having 2 picks as opposed to 3, I get it, but they lack so much. Like, especially considering you take a first look at their women's division and you're just like, what is going on?
5 women, right?
Yep, 5 women right now. So And the other
we can assume
to me. So yeah.
It's tough. It's tough. I mean, they're gonna have to do some big moves and have to shake some things up. We still got plenty of free agents as well. I don't know. I think they're gonna announce some free agents on that backstage show. I'm really interested in what they plan on doing with that show. You can definitely watch it after. Hopefully, the Yankees beat the Astros. But speaking of shows, let's go over to the actual content on the actual shows itself. We have SmackDown now on Fox, and possibly the biggest headline out of all of it. I know, Chris, this is where you shine in this moment. Bayley, if there is any doubt in your mind of a possible, maybe she's like, she's trying to figure it out, or maybe Sasha will turn on her, or maybe something to this. Bayley's fully bad to the fucking bone. She's gone full heel turn, including a new look, including, taking everything that was in the past before and doing away with it. Chris, what did you think of the new Bayley? Pam, I don't know, whatever. I feel like she would be more tougher if her name was Pam.
So, like, this whole thing's been kind of wild if you consider, how we got here, considering, she came in obviously with a lot of hype 3 years ago off of her NXT run. She did win the Raw Women's title in February the next year against Charlotte in Vegas, ironically, where she won it from Charlotte this past Friday. So she typically will beat Charlotte in Vegas if they're having a TV main event for a title.
Mm-hmm.
And then, she got nerfed into oblivion by a kendo stick.
Yes.
It was barely on any pay-per-views all of last year. I think she made maybe three main cards, and they were all because she pretty much had to, because she was in the Rumble, she was in the Elimination Chamber match, and then she was in the Survivor Series match, and that was it. She wasn't in anything else. And, Evolution, obviously, but that was an all-women's show. So, again, she was only on the cards that she had to be. Now, this year, she's been on every pay-per-view. She's a 2-time SmackDown champ now. And she's now the number one heel in a women's division, and she also chopped her hair off. I'm not sure what the more surprising thing is here, but it's
might be the hair.
Yeah, it's got to be the hair. I mean, the ponytail is part of her whole look, which was also someone also pointed out that she chopped it off on Dusty Rhodes' birthday, which of course Dusty was the one who inspired her to wear the ponytail. So that was kind of a funny little thing that someone brought up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, when she hit Becky with the chair repeatedly a month ago, I was pretty stunned. And then when she came out and she destroyed all the tube men, I was like, wow, we are really in a new territory here.
Yeah. Quan, what did you think about the heel turn that kind of rocked SmackDown, the end of it?
I really did. I thought it was great. A great way to end the show. At first, the stunned how silent the crowd was. They didn't even know what to make of it at the time. They were like, what's going on? Me included. Then she just whacked those Bayley buddies. Get those damn things done. I'm happy. I'm happy it happened. It's definitely a new arc for her career. I'm excited to see where it goes. Also, I wanted to point out she looked great on Friday. I never seen Bayley like that. It did something to me. I don't know what it did, but I felt the way.
Oh God. I don't know, the hair thing I'm still not completely used to be honest with you. And I don't know if she's used to it yet. It seems like a very we're chopping this off right now, but we're gonna forego actually I don't know, getting it done. But it's so, but to me it was so, I guess, refreshing to actually see the moment come, right? We're building up to this, we're still on the fence of it. You go through this thing, she loses the championship. To me, it's still, this might be in the make sense category why we even had Charlotte win the belt, but I don't know if they just wanted to improve, if they just wanted to impress Fox people on the day, impress the Fox audience just on the day of when it premiered on Fox. I don't know, but having Bayley lose it to win it back 2 weeks later, it might be in the make sense category. But nonetheless, Bayley reaching to this point, I mean, maybe it took that loss for her to really take her to take her over the edge.
Yeah, I agree with you, Meelz. And you pointed out, the make it make sense category here. I actually think that, this does fall into that, because it's like, okay, if you wanted to have her do this like full blown temper tantrum that she did at Hell in a Cell, which was only 5 days before she won it back, if you wanted to do that, why didn't you just do it going into Sunday, where she could have debuted the look and then won the title, or retained her title rather, or something or another. It feels to me like they just forced the 10th reign for Charlotte, which, no offense to Charlotte, didn't seem like the live crowd at Hell in a Cell could care any less about it.
No.
And then they just had her lose it again 5 days later, and I know that they're going to eventually give her, an 11th title reign or whatever. And also, her last 2 title reigns have legitimately lasted 5 days and 5 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I think legitimately they put her, and they made the last 2 title reigns that she had, and this is once again, nothing against Charlotte. The last name is like, okay, we're trying to put on a show and we need to impress people. Let's put the belt on Charlotte. That's generally the kind of air I feel about it, because there was no reason to take it off Asuka at the beginning of the year. It's still in my opinion, and there was no reason to take it off Bayley. I think I agree with everything you said. They should have done this a couple of weeks ago, and it would have got the sort of same reaction. To be honest with you,
exactly.
But Bayley, I mean, we've got to see what's going to happen on Friday on SmackDown in terms of how she followed this up. But she had one of the greatest lines to end of it. It was, "Hey bitches. Screw all of you." I don't know if it's screw all of you or screw you all.
It was screw all of you.
Screw. Nonetheless, Fireline. I'm stealing it. Raw and USA. Seth Rollins, Firefly Funhouse. Is this the end of the Firefly Funhouse? Do you feel like this is the end? I feel like this is kind of like when you burn something down, to me, it's like symbolic of you trying to get rid of it. But do you feel like this is the end of Firefly Funhouse? And would you be angry if it was?
Hope not. I think taking that aspect away from Bray and, the character, the Fiend, is kind of the balance of the character. If you take that away from Bray, like, what does he really have? Because, like, the Fiend doesn't talk. We don't know anything. Like, we need that Firefly Funhouse to facilitate the character to the ring. So people actually care about Fiend. If he would say, for example, if he would have showed up as the Fiend with no Firefly Funhouse previous to build it up, like, would he really had cared to the point
I agree.
They do now?
Yeah, the context would have been completely different. Actually, I think they probably would have booted eventually, but
yeah,
it's to me, I think we've gotten to a certain point where I honestly, from my experience going to that MSG show, one of the most anticipated parts of the show is the Firefly Funhouse, and it's something that's not on actually in the ring, so it's kind of interesting when people go up for it, because you're essentially watching a television at the live show. But it's one of the most anticipated parts, because people are just intrigued by just seeing it, and then seeing the dichotomy and seeing the complete stark difference when the Fiend actually comes out. But Seth Rollins made a statement earlier in the night. He says, "I'm going Fiend hunting," or whatever the fact, and then he goes and he beats up calm Bray Wyatt. And the match is announced at Crown Jewel that we're going to have Seth Rollins defending his Universal Championship against Bray Wyatt. Falls count anywhere. Crown Jewels. Bray Wyatt's on SmackDown. Not on Raw. Unless they move him to Raw, I think we're opening up for this being granted, this will be in Saudi Arabia, so it will not have the vociferous boos that they have, that they did in Hell in a Cell. But I think you're opening up to the more negative reaction. But is that what they actually want?
Ooh. It's crazy, because what's the wild part about the Saudi Arabia show? They don't have to do this match again. Like, there's no need to do it again. They could have had Bray wrestle anybody. Seth already has a match that night. Like, you didn't have to do this. So I'm just like, unless something major happens, like they just say whatever to give the belt to Bray. Like I don't see how they can get out of this again. They can't do a DQ finish or not a finish again. I just don't see where they go from this. It'll be very interesting. You know what? For the first time, I might tune into the Saudi show just to see what happens.
I mean, you could just pretty much catch it online. You don't got to do that to yourself. But it's it is. Chris, what have you thought of this entire thing thus far? I mean, people are definitely saying that this may be a write-off. I mean, he's in. I would say was it the Wrestler Observer newsletter? He said he's anticipating that this is a write-off. But what do you think?
I don't know, because I mean, if the Fiend is staying on SmackDown and he's with Bruce, I can't imagine that they take that element away. I think maybe it goes away for like a couple of weeks or so, but I think it's definitely gonna maintain. They're not gonna rip away the one thing that's been connecting him with the audience, especially if he's on the show with Bruce. So I think this is all just part of what they intend on doing with Seth, whatever it is. And, if they're trying to turn him loose into being a bad guy, it seems kind of obvious that might be where they're going with it, whether people are seeing that or not, then by all means. I mean, if you want to do a double turn with this, fine. The Fiend doesn't need to necessarily be a villain.
Right.
So, I mean, that's pretty much where I stand with it. I think it may be on a quote-unquote hiatus, but I don't see going away permanently.
This is such weird territory. I don't know what. So everyone was pretty much like, "Oh, this is a bad idea to even have this match in the first place." But now you're kind of doubling down, and you currently have Bray Wyatt on SmackDown, so it really doesn't make sense of why he's still obtaining a Universal Championship match. Honestly, they probably could have done it as a non-title match, and it would have still been fine.
Yep.
But here we are. I mean, I really don't know what to say to this anymore. On Raw, we also got another notable thing. We have new Raw Tag Team Champions. The long, arduous reign of Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode is officially over because the Viking Raiders are now Raw Tag Team Champions. What are you guys' quick thoughts on this?
I'm gonna give you guys a take. I think Viking Raiders, the past 2 years, they're top 3 tag team in wrestling at all, period.
Just right now?
I think the guys are incredible. Since they've signed to WWE, they haven't had a bad match yet. NXT, main roster. Even the squash matches are entertaining. I love these guys. I'm happy that they're the tag champs. Can't wait for them AOP. Hopefully they have a little feud if they're on Raw. I think the sky's the limit for these guys.
Yeah, I would agree, especially with what he had said. Viking Raiders have been awesome since they got there. I mean, there's really no denying it. I know that it's been a really, really slow burn for them since they got to Raw after the shakeup. But it paid off. The crowd was enthused with them. The crowd wanted them to win, and I'm glad that they did make the right decision in putting the belts on them. So also, did find it amusing that they gave Ring of Honor a shout out. Was not expecting that at all whatsoever.
Yeah, they said it right on the show. Only team to be ROH Tag Team Champions, IWGP Tag Team Champions, NXT Tag Team Champions, and Raw Tag Team Champions. And everyone's just like, whoa. And people are like, with their, the knee-jerk reactions, like, oh, they're going to get in trouble for that. Like, are you serious, bro? At this point, how long have you been watching the show and being on the internet and not knowing that they don't tell these people what to say when they say it?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. But you know what? Props to them. I did not like them when they first came in, but I'll say that the reason why I didn't like them is because I felt like it was already a crowded scene of bearded, huge guys who slam people into one another and things, especially with the Bludgeon Brothers and also AOP, who was just, at this point, just 2 guys in suits. But they have outlasted them all, and they have proved them all, and I look forward to the eventual Viking Raiders and AOP feud that we're going to get in pretty soon. At least that's what I think is going on. Boom. All right. That's all we're going to talk about for the shows. I have what we have. We have the hot takes. Justin isn't here. So I'm gonna squeeze in a few more than we do than usual because he only likes it when we do a little bit. He's like, yo, we don't got time for it. Well, listen, we're gonna go through these. And I think one of these hot takes is really good, and I think it'll make people actually think. So I'm gonna save it for last.
Okay.
But we're gonna go through some hot takes. Are you guys ready?
Yep.
All right. It says we have one, and these are really disrespectful. Like you guys are really I'm not doing all of them, but like you guys are really like getting it in. This one is from Peyton's Real Man. It says Ty left the WWE just to do the same things and be in the same position he was in WWE, just with less money and not around his wife. Smart. My God. What are your thoughts generally on what's his face? Not Ty. His name is not Ty anymore. It's Spears.
Yeah.
Sean Spears. What are your general thoughts on Sean Spears? I'm not a fan, but he seems to be a fan of himself, and that's all we can ask for at this point.
I'm gonna put it this way: there's a reason why he was in developmental for like 10 years. I believe that.
Yep.
That's almost.
Oh
That's
my
all I got
God.
for him.
Yeah, I will echo that same thought. I mean, the take is correct. He left WWE to do the exact same thing. Only now he's managed by Tully Blanchard. That's it.
Yeah. Very weird. I don't know what if this is a come up or not, but it certainly it is what it is. I'm sorry you left your wife in the WWE. I think that's it's crazy. You know what? Let me not talk about a man's wife. That's super disrespectful. Everyone's very disrespectful. Let's see this. Okay, so boom, this is 2K. Are you guys interested in 2K at all this year? At all?
I'll catch it on sale.
Oh my God!
I'll probably end up getting it because my roommates will want to play it, and we'll play Royal Rumbles and other things for a couple weeks, and then just get tired of it and forget that we have it.
I will say this. This is a take. This is a 2K related take. And if you were listening to this show, make sure you listen to our bonus episode, the HO 2K20 sort of recap with Justin and Mark earlier this week. If you want your fix of Justin and you feel like you didn't get it this week. This one comes from at Darius_ESQ. He was on the show actually at point this year. So shout out to Darius. He says, there is no way in hell Sasha Banks' overall on 2K20 should be an 80. I can understand her being lower than Becky and Charlotte, but she put on a banger with Ronda at the Rumble, won the women's tag team titles in the Chamber with Bayley, and just gave Becky's reign some legitimacy with the match of the night at Hell in a Cell. All Lacey Evans has done is throw a handkerchief in people's faces and puts crowds to sleep just to be rated higher than Sasha Banks. Okay. A scorcher from my man Darius. Are you involved? Do you care particularly about overalls on games like these? Or is there any overall that you like? That's weird. I mean, at this point, Brock Lesnar has been an overall 90 something for like his entire career. Like,
I feel, you know what, for 2K, I don't think ratings really matter that much on 2K. It's not like it's Madden. You know what I mean? Where a lot of time the CPU is involved with what the character's doing. Yeah, I mean Sasha's 80. She was gone for like half the year. Maybe that went into effect. I don't even know the ramifications of like what constitutes ratings for what, honestly. But speaking of Lacey Evans, can we please talk about her getting just walloped last night on Raw? That was boy, let me tell you.
Listen. I don't know what was going on with Kyrie Sane that day, but she was giving it to Lacey Evans.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, shout out to Lacey for selling that too, man. I don't know
if that was a sell. I don't know if that was a sell.
But man,
like she really like walloped her with that one fist, and then that double stomped. I felt like she just completely erased whatever eyelashes that were on her face. And I think there was a DDT too at some point that was just like notable as well. But my God, poor Lacey Evans took an ass whooping. Thankfully, she won't have to face Kyrie Sane anymore because she is now on Friday nights. With
They
that
can be on both
said,
shows.
Yeah, I
With
mean,
that-
and just one real quick, I would probably care more about ratings in these games if the AI was anything, good, but it never is, so it really doesn't even matter.
this is true. This is true. So boom, we have this one from a constant submitter of hot takes, and I appreciate all his hot takes. We have this one from Wrath Trollins. It says, not a hot take, but to see Seth on a different brand from Dolph, Baron, Brock, Braun, and Bray fills me with the utmost joy. He's on a different brand, but I'm not sure if there's new dance partners, to be honest with him, for Seth Rollins.
This is true.
But him being on a different, I mean, we don't have to see Seth versus Braun anymore. We definitely don't have to see Seth versus Dolph anymore.
Nope.
And I really don't want to see Seth versus Baron anymore. Nor to Brock. I mean, the Brock thing is just a shaky thing every time. So listen, he's away from all the big B's at this point on the show. Like, I'm interested in terms of where we go post this Fiend thing and who lines up to be the new challenger for Seth Rollins.
Agree.
Yeah, at this point we need a switch, we need a change, we need something. People aren't
it's
feeling it.
looking like Drew.
The people aren't feeling Rollins as much as they used to, and it's getting to him. He's someone who's he gets agitated very, I wouldn't say easily, but you can tell from various points where the crowd did not approve of things he did. He doesn't know how to necessarily deal with that. He was legitimately on
sensitive a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, he's legitimately on Twitter today defending the result from 2 weeks ago. I'm like, bro, it's been 2 weeks. Like relax. Boom, boom, boom. Let's see. This one comes from @_Kenec, KENEC. It says the fight for the first picks were irrelevant because Raw being 3 hours versus SmackDown 2 hours meant Raw always had 3 picks per round. So the Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns fight and the Becky and Charlotte fight did not make any sense, but I think WWE just thinks that we're zombies. We know it's kayfabe, but at least make an effort sometimes. The fight for the first pick. I mean, it didn't matter. It didn't matter. To me, that didn't, I mean, there's so many things of it that didn't matter to me, but the fight for the first pick and we're actually like the only thing that mattered to me was that they were really good matches, both of them.
Yeah.
So that was something you could at least take away from it. But other than that, like, yeah, I mean, every round 3 picks to 2, it didn't even matter, to be honest with you. Let's see. I'm going to do this @APD Rich9. He says Seth Fiend has been a great slow burn for Seth's eventual heel turn, and people are too busy complaining about WWE to notice what's going on. Heel turn, what do we think?
You know what? He might need to. The way I'm hearing the boos. They're getting louder and louder. It seems like every week. So I wouldn't be mad at it. Friends of mine have said they think his face run so far has been pretty lackluster. I think he'd have some great opponents to work with on Raw. I mean, I would love to see him versus Ricochet eventually. I mean, who else do they got on? Mostly Ricochet. I think that'd be a great.
Just mostly Ricochet.
I don't remember who's on what roster. I don't have it in front of me. I'm just trying to think.
It's all right. It's legitimately the same guy. Facing either, it's gonna be Rollins versus him. I don't know if Cedric Alexander will get a turn. I don't know if Aleister Black will get some fun or anything like that. But it's a younger, less, I guess, less bouldering roster on Monday Night Raw. Let us see. Are you ready for the final hot take?
Yes.
This is the final one. I'm interested in what you guys think about it because it's kind of one that it may affect someone on a different level depends who you are. But this one is from Ebenezer. It says, certain fans have lost interest completely in wrestling and don't realize it, which is why they find WWE so bad. a take. Fans have lost interest in wrestling completely and don't realize it, which is why they find WWE so bad. Do you feel like the WWE hate is warranted, and do you feel like there's any truth to this statement?
I think that, nothing is obviously perfect and everything. There's room for critiques and whatnot. It's when people are so hyper reactive to literally every little thing that happens every single week and make sweeping statements about everything every single week without wanting to, just sit back and just let things play out, even if they end up playing out poorly or what have you. That's when I think that people just go way too overboard with it. And I think that, maybe they do that because they don't have any interest and don't realize it. Maybe they do that because they see how engagement gets them, and how negative engagement, works on Twitter and whatnot. You get clout and whatnot for doing all that stuff. But I don't know what it is. But I mean, there might be some truth in that. Like maybe they just shouldn't be, so focused on something that they apparently hate so much. Like if you don't want to watch, no one's forcing you to, and you can just bow out anytime that you want. It doesn't matter.
Right. Quan, what do you think about this?
It does. I mean, it bothers me a little bit. I understand. Yeah, of course, WWE is not perfect. There's stuff I see on there I think is bullshit. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's just wrestling. And the best thing, I mean, I don't think people are realizing there's so many options now. If you don't like WWE, there's like 30 different shows you can watch now. MLW has a show. Ring of Honor has a show. New Japan, AEW has a show. AEW Dark, whatever, YouTube. NWA has a great show. I watched the first episode last week. Wonderful. You like the old school style? There's so many options. You don't have to hate watch WWE. You really don't. It is. I just don't understand. I get it. If you want the internet clout, like Chris said, you want to say negative things. You want to be like a homeboy. I forgot his name. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
What I'm talking about.
All multiple of them. Yes, we know.
All multiple of them. Yeah, that's their brand. Even Meltzer, that's his brand. To be real, or Alvarez, be real critical. But at the end of the day, like there's so many options. You don't. Wrestling that probably at its peak. This is the biggest wrestling's been since what? Late 90s, probably 99, 98.
Yeah.
Like, come on, man. It's like,
to me,
have fun. Wrestling's fun.
Yeah, to me, I mean, I looked at that take and I was like, whoa, that's like a different take, because I feel like it'll make people actually take a look at themselves and kind of wonder if are you into the product, or are you into just like commenting on how bad it is, or are you into that like that? Because I just remember it was post Attitude Era. It was during like maybe one of Triple H's many title reigns. And I just remember tuning into ROH and I'd be like, oh, this ROH stuff is some of the best stuff. Like I used to be that guy. Like I remember I was just like, oh, Paul London, you don't know Paul London and AJ Styles. Like, yeah, you got to watch that match and et cetera, et cetera. And I remember being that guy. And I just remember, and it was probably because I didn't like anything that was going on. I mean, you had, what did you have? Like Shawn Michaels and God versus Vince McMahon and Shane McMahon. It was like, what are we really doing at this point? So there was the alternative, and I just remember just being like, maybe I don't like this as much as I did before. And there's some periods now where I'm just like, I'm watching the show, and I'm like, I don't really like what's going on, to be honest with you. Like, I'm just like, I'm not enamored with it. I feel like I'm just watching it for no reason. And to be honest with you, sometimes I turn it off or I put it on mute and do something else. I think that's really kind of the route that people really need to take. I really don't. My philosophy is I don't really do things I don't like or watch anything I hate. I don't hate WWE. At some point, some things aren't interesting, so I just choose not to pay attention to it. But I'll never watch something I hate, and I'll never try to really spend all of my time just shitting on a product. I try to find the funniest things that out of WWE that I can. I really just tweet like stupid shit because I'm just like, we got to make this entertaining somehow. Like, there's more than one way to get engagement, and it's not always just pooping on the WWE, to be honest with you. Like, there's more than one way to do all these other things, and You don't have to do all that. You can legitimately find the funny in it. You can legitimately like watch something else. You can do anything. Yeah, I mean, that's a take that made me actually take a look and like, do people hate wrestling? Maybe. But with that said, I want to thank you guys, Chris Novak. I want Quan thank you for coming on the show and co-hosting with me as we have Justin off on international duties. He's out here talking to Austrians and Germans and all type of people that, you know, secretly provide your favorite energy beverages and all this of the sort. Thank you guys.
No problem.
Thank you for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Novak, Chris, where can they follow you?
You can follow me at Chris M. Novak, M as in the Miz. And I will be typically posting about wrestling, typically posting about baseball or any sports bets that I have going on lately. Also, you know, you can follow any of my work with the Barbershare at BarbershareNet. I'm part of the Ruthless Aggression podcast with my roommate Rob and our friend Pierce. We're actually recording later tonight, so that episode will probably be up on Wednesday along with this episode of the A Show. I would imagine. So it should be twice in one day if you're interested. The WWE Top 25 will be posted by the end of the month. We're towards the end of this whole thing. We're going to hit 1,000 matches on Wednesday on whatever the third match on NXT is. That will be the 1,000th match that I've tracked. So looking forward to seeing what that is. Looking forward to seeing how things shake out there. But yeah, you can follow me at Chris M, as in the Miz, Novak, Novak.
Quan, where can they follow you and see all your thoughts and shit like that?
You can follow me on Twitter. It's Quan from CT. So, you know, I mean, if you want to hear dumb stories about my life and, you know, leaving my car running or whatever, you want to laugh at my
I didn't want to bring it up. I didn't want to bring it up.
You would.
No, I didn't want to because I felt like we bring it up quite frequently enough because it's one of the greatest stories of all time. To leave your car running an entire shift.
another time I'll tell the full story.
Yeah, please do. We got so many stories to tell. You'll definitely be back on the show, Chris. We will definitely be back on the show, and we hope you guys are back to listen. And next week will actually be the 2-year anniversary of the A Show. It'll be 2 years since we were under siege. That Raw was under siege from SmackDown, and they did all that stupid shit with Shane McMahon dying and people jumping off of stuff and all this other stuff. So I don't know. Who knows? Maybe we'll take a look back at that show if the show kind of sucks this week. But it'll be interesting. Thank you guys for tuning in. This has been episode 104 of the A Show. We will see you guys next time. Peace.